Yo, what's up, everybody, man? It's your fellas, the Water Cooler Talk Sports, man. We back around the water cooler, man, and we appreciate y'all so much, man. Tonight, we're gonna get into this real debate, real conversation, man. We've been talking about transfer portal, we've been talking about a lot of stuff, but we're gonna talk about player development tonight, ladies and gentlemen, man. Stick with us tonight. This should be a really good conversation, man. This should be a really good one. Stick with us. We're coming back around the water cooler. It's coming up next. Bring us
Boys
in,
and girls of all ages, you're tuned into the Water Cooler Talk podcast, the biggest podcast in the world. Yeah.
You are now tuned in to Water Cooler Talks, covering everything you love about college football, especially everything going down in the SEC conference. So, if you love college football, you need to lock in. And now, your hosts, Nick Frazier and Marcus Fitzpatrick.
Woo-hoo! Yes, sir, ladies and gentlemen, man. We appreciate y'all so much for rocking with us here around the water cooler. As always, my name is Nick Frazier, one half of the Water Cooler Talk podcast, and you can't see him, but you can hear him. Tell him who you are, boss man.
Man, you know who it is, Mr. Marcus Fitzpatrick. Let's go, let's get it.
Yes, sir, man. We appreciate y'all so much for rocking with us here around the water cooler. As always, man, we are back here on this Friday, man, and we're gonna talk a little. I think this may be a little bit more of a philosophical discussion tonight, but it's gonna be dope, man. Joining us around the water cooler tonight, I got from Auburn Addicts. It's the one, the only DC Wolf. What's up, DC? How you feeling?
What up? I'm glad to be here. Very happy to be here. Let's go.
And the Auburn fan favorite, the man himself, from at its SC season. Auburn Tez is in that house. What up, Auburn Tez? What's going on?
Yeah, what's going on, fellas? What's going on?
We appreciate y'all so much for rocking with us here as always, man. Before we get into it, follow us on Facebook at the Water Cooler Talk Podcast. Follow us on Instagram and TikTok at the Water Cooler Talk, man. Follow us on Twitter at CoolerSpot23. And of course, subscribe, like, share, and hit the notification bell button here on YouTube so you know when we post more videos and when we go live here around the water cooler. As always, man, we appreciate y'all so much. Let's get into the comment section before we knock this thing out and get into this debate, man. The king of the comments, Travell, is in here saying he is first. Shout out to Travell. He's in here. His first one. Shout out to Travell. We appreciate that. The legend of Sweet Sugar Bow Williams, the Rooster Mac, the Huggy Beard himself.
Huggy.
What up? How you feeling? We waiting on the video to drop. We trying to get you to 50, so we're trying to get you to 50 subs so we can see that, so we can see you go live. But we want to see you drop the video while that's happening, bro. You feel what I'm saying? I feel you on that. Shout out to the Huggy Beard saying what's up to everybody. How you feeling? Robert Smith, Marcus's number one fan, is in the house. He said, what's up, my neighbors? What's up, Robert? How you feeling, my guy? Hope everything is going good with you, man. Let's see what's going on. He said Tez is Costi McNair's son. Bro, we go keep
Tez, man. Tez, you need to start like giving a no, I'm not, because I actually thought you was, man.
No, I'm
you
not.
said it so much.
Hey, for real, I'm glad. I'm glad you said
I was like, wow, okay.
You're right. You're right. No, I'm not Cassie Mendez.
Thank you, DC. Thank you, because I was like, Tez, why you don't never say nothing about that right now?
Because I mean, every week is something different. It's something. Lionel Richie at first.
It was Lionel Richie at first. I don't know where Costi McNair came. Where did Costi come from? Because
I think we just kind of light-skinned people from Tuskegee.
That's what I'm saying. Like, were we talking about DJ or something when he said that?
Nah, he just picking light-skinned people from Tuskegee, saying they're my dad.
I was like, man, I was like, wow, okay, that's pretty cool.
That's Costi, boy. I know Costi from the radio. What's up? Nick Beard, Ash is not. It's just my face. Exfoliation, that's all it is, man. Shout out to Robert Mills. He still want to know where his crown at. Robert, I have no idea about that. My God, that is something new on YouTube. I don't know about that, but hopefully we can find it for you, man. The Huggy Beard said he uploaded a short right before 7:00. Oh, snap! So you just uploaded it then? Okay, so I need to go watch that.
Get no notification. Huh?
I didn't get one either because I definitely hit the notification bell. I did not get one, but I'm gonna check it out though. Travell said, "Man, Marcus need to move in an area with Wi-Fi he still got dial up.
How you gonna be dunking on your own brother, bro? Like, how you gonna be your own kinfolk, man? It be the people that grew up with you, man.
Man, BC, that been my whole childhood, honestly.
Oh my God!
Man,
you still got dial up. I mean, you gotta take the phone line out of the phone and put it in the little modem. And we got AOL. Is that what you saying? You got AOL? Is that what it is?
Hey, do y'all remember when, like, if you used to get a phone call back in the day that throw your whole internet off?
Oh yeah.
Boy, oh my God, boy.
Yeah,
y'all had the minute CD. Yeah, 1,000 AOL minutes.
Welcome. You've got mail. That's so funny. He said,
come a long way, man.
He said Ted's Tom Joyner's cousin on his daddy's side. Come on.
See?
All light-skinned people like this side.
Yeah.
All right, man. Let's get into it, man. We appreciate y'all so much for rocking with us here around the water cooler as always, man. This is gonna be a good show, man. This should be a good show. So as you can tell from the thumbnail and from the title of the show, tonight's transfer portal. We talked about the transfer portal, which has been one of the biggest issues in college football since 2018. This is going on year 8 of the transfer portal, actually, which doesn't even seem like that long. It kind of feels like it just started maybe like 3-4 years ago, but we're going on year 8 of the transfer. So let's get the conversation going by framing a question like this. Let's frame it like this, okay? We talked about the transfer portal in the past. We talked about, has the transfer portal killed loyalty to schools? We talked about that. Is the transfer portal even good for college football? We talked about that. We talked about how people are utilizing the transfer portal. But let's frame the question tonight around this. In today's college football, right? You want instant impact. Kind of how offenses are but starting to become, more attractive now in college football and stuff like that. Coaches, they feel the pressure to win right now, kind of like what we got going on the plains at Auburn right now. Even though he doesn't say he feels, even though Coach Freeze probably says he doesn't feel pressure, I kind of figure that's not true. But we'll see. We'll see moving forward with that. With all the movement that is happening, are we seeing the death of the 3 to 4 year player development model that was once instated in college football, which is attributing to the football that we see on the professional level in the NFL? And I ask this: is college football trading in quick fixes? And is it a problem? And I'm gonna start with DC first.
Are they trading in quick fixes? You saying if the portal are killing development?
Yeah, no, that's basically what it is. Is college football trading in quick fixes to win now instead of having players develop and reach their full potential? Let's put it like that.
I'm gonna say no, man. I'm gonna go on this side and say, man, it's not hurting development. I'm gonna go on the side. Maybe my thought is it's helping development.
Okay.
From this standpoint, check this out. Back in the day when you were an athlete coming into college and you weren't gonna get to the NFL, you just took your scholarship money, took your scholarship, and you just focused kind of like on school. You wasn't trying to develop to go to the NFL. Now, when you coming out of high school, even in high school, just getting to a Power 4 school is gonna give you life-changing money. So now, even in high school, bro, they are trying to develop even earlier. So when you get to a school like, just say, for instance, Kennesaw State, Georgia State, if you make it to that point, you're looking at, I might not make it to the NFL, but if I can get to an Auburn or Ohio State and just be a rotational player, I can get generational money. I can get $500,000, $600,000 just for playing a couple of years. So from that sense, I think players are more focused on developing than they were before. From that standpoint, that cats that didn't make it to the NFL or knew they didn't have the worth to make it to the NFL or ability to make it to the NFL, they were just trying to get their degree and do what they do, have a good time. But now, man, you can actually develop yourself to a point where you can just be a rotational piece, or just if I can make the roster at an Ohio State or a Georgia or an SEC school, man, that's a good check. So now from high school, man, people are developing early for that reason.
So you looking at it from the money perspective. Okay.
Yes.
All right.
Yes.
Marcus, what you think?
I gotta disagree with DC on this one. Because just looking at it from a personal standpoint for me, just like when I went from high school to college, just being inside just the college room was different. The strategies and the terminologies and everything was different. So it's just like Nick said, when you are at a university for 1 year and you're not even trying to learn the strategies because you're just trying to get on the field to get playing time, player development can mean a lot more than just talent. You when you in those locker rooms, you also have to build character, build all those type of things that help you as a player going forward. And it's just like when you don't have to sit and compete, or when you just can go around from school to school chasing money, you're not really even thinking about those things. You're relying on your natural talent to keep carrying you from situations to situations. And that's why you will see a lot of kids at these universities for 5 and 6 years just milking the system.
Okay. Interesting take there. Tez, what you think?
I'm gonna say that is not killing development. I can see why it appears that way, but when you think about it, the transfer portal goes both ways. So there's kids that may have went to a smaller school who wouldn't never got a chance to play at a high level, who end up getting the opportunity because of the transfer portal. I don't necessarily agree with the 1 year you can transfer type deal, but overall the portal, I mean, look at how many times kids transfer with 3 years of eligibility left. Some kids red shirt and then transfer with 4 years of eligibility left. Like we got what Horatio Fields, how much eligibility he's got left? Like
1 year.
I think
he's got one.
He got two, one or two.
They had more than one.
Yeah, I think he has two. I think.
But we've gotten, I know specifically Auburn, we've gotten some transfer players with multiple years of eligibility.
Yeah, McLeod
our quarterback.
Yeah,
has 2 years of eligibility.
Yeah.
So like when you look at it from that standpoint, like the kids are getting developed somewhere. They just maybe not at the original school that they decided to go to. So if you go, you transfer 1 year out for playing time, and then you go to another school and spend 3 years there and go to the NFL. It's the same development time. It's just at a different school.
I disagree. I think okay. So we've kind of set the benchmark here. It kind of looks as if me and Marcus is on the same plane, and Tez and DC is on the same plane here. That's what it kind of feels like. I wholeheartedly disagree with y'all. I really do. I wholeheartedly disagree. And here's the reason why. Here's the reason why. I did a little research on this. A lot of NFL scouts, especially when it comes to those premium positions that they feel are the positions that I call them the money-making positions. Those are the positions that the teams look for the next level. I feel like they feel that a lot of guys are coming into the NFL and they are not fully prepared for what an NFL type system is because of what the college game is now. And let's be honest. In the college game, you have a lot of RPO style type offenses.
That's true.
In the NFL, and you look at I think the earliest I can think of this happening is probably around the 2018 season, and maybe even, and I think what I'm about to say, the earliest implication of us seeing this turn is probably Cam Newton. From what I'm about to say, Cam Newton was not your traditional type quarterback that came into the NFL. Now, granted, You can say Donovan McNabb, you can say Warren Moon, you can say all of these other quarterbacks that were in the league, Dante Culpepper. You can say all of these other quarterbacks that were in the league that were considered mobile quarterbacks, but they were better passers of the football and came out of systems that were more pro-ready style type systems when they got to the NFL. Cam Newton coming out of a system at Auburn under Gus Malzahn was not a pro type system that translated to the next level. So when you look at what teams are doing, you look at what you look at the Ravens going out and getting a Joe Brady, who was at LSU, to come in and institute a type of offense that probably fits more to what Lamar Jackson's skill set is, just because he's a can't miss talent when you look at that. So when you look at it now, to you all's point about transferring and being better and being able to make, you know, money, I get that part. But when we're talking about specifically playing on the field, playing X's and O's on the field, I don't think a lot of guys in the college ranks, because of the fact of how the game is played, the type of offenses that we'll see. Defensive wise, you see a lot of more defensive guys go to the league and they transfer a little bit better. D-line, you got some defensive backs that get drafted and they can play day one or be a rotational piece within the first 2 years, and it's not that much of a drop off. But when you get to quarterbacks, when you get to wide receivers, when you get to offensive linemen, when you look at those type of players, a lot of scouts feel like a lot of those guys are coming into the league and they're not being fully developed, or they're not being they're not the potential of where they need to be in order for them to compete at that level at that time.
But that's what I was alluding to, Nick, when I was saying, like, for a personal experience for me, when I went from high school to college, it's basically they were teaching me how to watch film. Meaning, like, in high school, it was just the plain Jane version of watching film. Like, all right, you in 4-3, you see what covers they in, you see what he dropping back to. But then when you got to college, you start watching it in detail, like from tendencies to just making sure the cornerback is in his right depth in the beginning of the play, and like you just broke it down detail by detail. You set in hours. Like in college, is like a work schedule. You get to watch film in the morning, you got to come back and watch film at night. So it's just like it prepares you for, if you do go to that next level, what you're gonna anticipate from when you go in those rooms and strategizing, and you got to learn a thick playbook by the snap of your finger. So, and by the way, Nick, Joe Brady is the Buffalo Bills offensive coordinator, not Lamar Jackson.
He was at another team before he went to the Bills.
LSU, I thought.
Yeah, he came into the league. I didn't. What did I say? Did I say who came? You gave
him to the Ravens.
Who was the OC? Who was the OC under Lamar Jackson?
I think they got Georgia.
Ty Monkey. But who?
Your boy? You talking about? He went to your team, Nick. Joe Brady went to your team.
No, Joe Brady didn't go to my team.
Carolina Panthers.
Yes, he did.
He went there with Matt Rule.
You right. I'm tripping, bro.
Okay.
I'm tripping. You right. God, dog, I'm tripping. But anyway, yeah, you're right. It is. But anyway, but you look at that and you start looking at those type of guys that's coming into the league that want to they're trying. It seems as if the NFL is trying to institute a mixture of what the NFL wants to do in the pro style game, but has to put in those aspects of the college game in order to kind of compensate for what players can't do on what they want to do. I'm asking y'all this question, man. The reason being, can you all think of any guys? Well, I'll say that for later. Is there a reason why? Do y'all feel like there's a reason why schools like Alabama, Ohio State, Georgia, it seems like Oregon is starting to get into that mix as well too, are the reason why a lot of teams in the NFL draft so heavily for the schools? Because I'm looking in the chat right now and I see the conversation that was between Ant and Robert, and they was talking about winning championships and things like that. Do you think it has more to do with them winning, or do you think it has more to do with the perception and the cachet of those coaches that were at those schools? And I'm talking about Nick Saban, not Kalen DeBoer. But you was looking at those type of guys that of what they can do scheme wise and what they have been able to put on the field that has helped them win. And it looks more like what the NFL wants. What are your thoughts on that? I'm gonna start with Marcus on this one.
Well, when the schools that you name outside of like right now with the NIL being at its peak, schools that you name were able to sustain, like you said, sustain greatness, and a lot of them kept a lot of players. So they were very good in player retention. So it's just like maybe like you said, it's the coaching or whatever it was. But now you see the schools that are getting drafted are, you know, leading in salary and transfer portal pieces. Ohio State. So it's just like the nature of the beast is changing. So those schools that you name might soon fall off that hill that they were on.
Interesting take.
Mm-hmm.
That's a really interesting take. Ted, your thoughts?
Yeah, I kind of agree with Marcus. But then there's I don't know, like hold on a second.
Yeah, go ahead.
Come back to me. Can you
All
come back
right,
to me?
you go, DC, go ahead.
My bad. Hold on a second.
I think actually it's cyclical, man. On that part, I agree with Marcus, because when you go and look at Georgia's, Alabama's, and those people and those teams, Ohio State's, man. I remember when it was a time when Georgia and Auburn, their record as far as head to head, man, they were like pretty much even. You know what I'm saying? And then they got on the hot streak. They start getting players. Now all of a sudden they're known as a NFL funnel. You know what I'm saying? But that's only because Kirby Smart got it, you know, won some games. He got some recruits in, and then those recruits went to the NFL. So now you can go to a Toodle and say, hey, man, we put linebackers in, when it just becomes you're just recruiting great players. You know what I'm saying? And I think it's more recruiting great players than this thing of Georgia is this powerhouse for development. You know what I'm saying? When you recruit, when you recruit more 5-star players, then the NFL is going to look and be like, okay, yeah, they're housing all the talent. So I'm gonna go to this school. If Auburn starts winning, the players and they put a few players, just say for instance, if they get the left tackle in the first round, and if they get Eric in the first round, Singleton in the first round, and if they get Keldrick Falk in the first round, then you can go to the next group of players and say, okay, we put defensive ends in the first round, we put wide receivers in the first round. So then more players are going to come, and then as those players come, man, then the NFL is going to be like, well, Auburn houses talent. You see what I'm saying? I think it's
okay, hold up. Okay, so you saying so you saying it's because of the talent that's there, not because of the systems that Kirby Smart, and I'm using Kirby because you mentioned Georgia.
Yeah.
And it's not because of the type of system that they run that when those players do get to the next level, it won't be foreign to them. Is that what you're saying?
No, I agree. Now I agree with you. Hear me right here. You might have a coach that might be able to teach on an NFL level better than other coaches. It might have a better NFL type system than other coaches, but I think a lot of that, man, I think a lot of it is talent, man. Honestly, you know what I'm saying? I think a lot of it is talent, because if Hugh Freeze get his stuff on the rails like he need to get it on the rails, bro, he gonna have wide receivers lined up. You know what I'm saying?
But here's my rebuttal. Here's my rebuttal to that. A lot of here's my rebuttal to that. Penn State recruits a lot of talent. But they're not sending a lot of guys to the league, and they're not sending a lot of guys to the league like Georgia is. And Penn State wins. Like Penn State wins at a clip. They're not winning national championships, but they're winning enough games to where they're on the radar nationally to what team what scouts should be like, all right, well, let's look at that. I mean, you sent Michael Parsons to the league. You know, they just sent another guy to the league and things, stuff like that. You can mention Clemson. Clemson
Clemson was sending a lot of people to the league too, bro.
Yeah, they were.
But that's when they was winning national championships.
But now they're still. But Clemson is still getting 4 and 5 star type talent to come to their school, but you don't really hear much about them sending to the league. So that's my question is this: Florida State was still getting 4 and 5 star type talent as well, but you don't really hear much about teams going to Florida State. Like you don't see, and I know this may be an outlier. You don't see a Howie Roseman at Philadelphia going and saying, "I'm going to go get the whole front 7 of Georgia's front 7," because I know when they get here, it won't be a drop off of anything. It's almost like they've been taught this system is everything. So
Okay.
I'm just trying to understand that part.
That's a part of it, man. That's a part of it. But I can guarantee you, if Kirby wasn't recruiting 5-star defensive linemen, the Philadelphia Eagles wouldn't be there. I don't care how much scheme and how well they know how to play NFL ball. If you don't have the Jimmies, bro, them O's and X's ain't gonna matter. You see what I'm saying? So
but sometimes they do because sometimes you can tap talent out, but you can scheme people in a certain situation.
But what I would say, all of it has a part to play.
Of course,
and that's what I was going to say. Like, you have to have top-notch recruit.
Yeah,
you have to have a great system, and you have to have player retention because if those players come back in that same system, they learn it better. And the system is more than just X's and O's because we have to get out of just thinking a system is just X's and O's.
Right.
A system is nutrition. A system is getting the player's body condition enough to be ready to train at that level. Because a lot of times you see guys burning out. A system like Go ahead, Ted. I'm sorry.
Oh no, you good, man. I was about to say, I actually kind of agree with DC on this, man. I think that the factories, while these places have been NFL factories, so to speak, they also have been putting very good fuel in the machine.
Right.
But that's what I was saying.
My thing about it, as great as Nick Saban is, like Nick Saban doesn't have a track record at Michigan State for sending talent to the NFL.
Yes.
And we know he's a great developer, but you just can't do it at that school because that school is not getting that type of fuel in.
But Alabama wasn't getting that either in 06, 07.
Think about
that. Historically, they are though.
But no. Let's not do historically. Let's not do historically like that. When Saban came in, that was not a top tier program. That was not a top tier program.
What I'm saying is, prior to Saban, they weren't littered all throughout the NFL like that either.
Right.
Alabama was kind of littered through the NFL like that.
Not like they are now. They weren't.
That's my point. But that's my point. He came in and he started and he used what he had first and developed that and had guys come in.
Those early classes wasn't football fact. It wasn't NFL factories either.
I would say, Tez, you mentioning Michigan State, that was a smart idea because you can't use LSU. Nick Saban's kind of
because he won a championship.
Yeah, I was saying Nick Saban kind of a difficult person to put that tag on because when he was at LSU, he boosted up their draft rate.
Yeah,
you only mention the parts that support your argument. Mark.
I like that.
Exactly, that's what it is. Good lawyers. That's what I'm talking about.
That was very smart of you.
Hey, but think about this. All right, so think about this though. Like I'm gonna name some teams. Number 1, these are the teams with the most talent in the NFL currently. Number 1, Alabama. Number 2, Georgia. Michigan. LSU. Ohio State. Notre Dame. Oklahoma. Penn State. Texas. And last one in the top 10 is Oregon. Now, go look at recruiting over the last 10 years. I guarantee you that those schools are they probably pretty close to in that order.
Yeah.
Like they're probably pretty close in that order, man. Like you cannot discount when you are putting top talent in because here's one of the things I want to point out. When we talk about the star system, I know we all got different opinions on that. these schools are getting players. When you talk about 4 and 5 star players, a lot of that sometimes comes down to size. So you're getting guys that are already NFL size, and you're getting a lot of them. And now you're teaching guys who are already NFL size fundamentals. You're putting them through strength and conditioning. They're getting bigger, faster, and stronger versus these schools that don't get as many of those guys. And you're trying to get these guys up to NFL size. It takes them 3 and 4 years to reach that. Where these schools on this list, these guys come in ready to play college football. Some of them come in looking like NFL players. So you cannot discount the talent when it comes to how many active players that are just reflected in the NFL. Now,
I'll say this.
Now, Nick, what you said about Cam Newton is a completely different conversation.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I agree with you there. I had to use, like you said, you got to use it to get your argument. But here is where I rebut to you as well on that. Talent is important. Talent is very important. I'm not sitting here saying that a coach that continually can recruit 3 and mid-tier 4-star guys and continually be in the conversation of winning 9, 10, 11 games a year, that's a great coach. But if you naturally do that, you're going to start getting the attention of the higher caliber type talent. Okay, I'm gonna read this. This came from an NFL scout. This came from this came from a report from a guy that looked at NFL scouts that wanted to stay anonymous. This is what they said. They said the NFL does not believe most players are fully developed when they arrive. And to your point, is I'm gonna come up because I want to. You mentioned something that when I was looking at this, when I was researching for this earlier, you made a point. I'm gonna restart. He said the conclusion is the NFL does not believe most players are fully developed when they arrive, especially at quarterback, offensive line, and certain defensive roles. However, they do recognize the physical talent and explosive potential of modern players. This gap between talent and pro readiness is why many rookies, especially at critical positions, are expected to sit and develop rather than start right away. So my point that I'm asking is, you mentioned the schools, Alabama, Georgia, Oregon, Texas, Oklahoma, Ohio State, Notre Dame. You mentioned these schools. Yeah, these are all brand schools. I mean, if we can't take them out, if we want to take them out, it would probably give you a more even playing field across the landscape of what college football is like and who's actually sending people to the league, and things like that. And we can maybe talk about it in a minute. We could probably talk about smaller schools that are sending guys to the league and who have done more and done and,
interesting conversation.
And did that. But the NFL is saying these guys aren't developed at that, but they are recognizing that these guys are physically talented and the potential is there. I mean, and I just had to go look up some examples of people that they felt that was that way. Trey Lance, they felt that he was underdeveloped, but he was a raw talent.
He came from North Dakota State. He don't count.
He's one of those small. He does count. He made it to the NFL. Malik Willis, he transferred from Auburn to Liberty. They felt like he was undeveloped, but he was a talented raw prospect. Isaiah Wilson, he's one of those offensive tackles from Georgia. He was a first-round pick. And the concern was physically gifted, but lacked technique and discipline. Let me see. Let me look at some other guys. But then when you compare that to some guys like, listen to this, Justin Jefferson, when he was at LSU, CJ Stroud from Ohio State, Penei Sewell from Oregon, Sauce Gardner, when he was at Cincinnati. When you look at those type of guys, there is a difference. Like, I'm not sitting here saying that every single factory that we talking about is going to are continually sending guys to the league, and every single guy that's into the league is just going to be a home run hit. But I do think that there is a conversation that needs to be had by saying that yes, talent is important, but you also got to look at what that coach is doing with that talent, because we can all sit here and say that Auburn had a talented roster last year and it was mismanaged. We can all sit here and say that. We can all sit here and say that Oklahoma had probably a more talented offense roster than what they showed last year, but because of injuries, it didn't pay it on the field. You can all sit here and say that potentially Tennessee could have been a more talented roster than what they had on the field, but because of whatever was going on, it didn't pan. They made it to the playoffs, but you got your quarterback that wanted to leave. So I mean, there are certain situations to where when you name these schools, you have to look at the system and why potential teams continually pick from those rosters, those trees of talent and development, because there is a better there is a more favorable chance that guy from that school who played in that system is going to pan out more than another guy from another school who's probably a every 2 to 3 year type school, but this school is continually having them in a conversation. I understand the talent. I understand the talent part, but those coaches didn't start off with talent like that. They had to build to that point to where they can continually get to the point to where they can flip guys to their school and continually get top tier talent. That's my argument. Y'all thoughts?
I don't know, man. I think you're discounting the importance of talent, man.
I'm not discounting talent at all. Here's what
I mean is
talent makes it easier. It makes it a lot easier because when you mention 5-star guys, a lot of those 5-star guys ain't gonna pan out as 5 stars. A lot of them ain't gonna. A lot of those 5-star guys are not gonna be top tier talent when they get to the next level. You're gonna have a lot of 3-star guys that's gonna be better than some 5-star guys. So when you talk about talent, yes, it's the same way. When you look at a 5-star, you're saying from a high school level, you're saying this guy at this moment has a better chance than this guy who's a 3-star of panning out. It's not a science, but I'm saying based on what I've seen on tape at this time, at this level, he has a better chance of panning out. Is all I'm saying. So yeah, if you go to those schools and those guys start panning out, yeah, you're gonna start getting more. You're gonna and that school is winning, you're gonna start getting a lot more of those guys. So I'm just saying.
So specifically talking about getting guys to the NFL. We talked about this on another pod. The star system is what we got to remember is not 4 and 5-star player. It's 4 and 5-star prospect. The only thing that they evaluate when they're looking at these kids are measurables: size, speed, height, and whatever they put on the field. There's no mental evaluation into it. You can't tell whether this player is hungrier than this other player. They're not interviewing the kids like they do in the NFL draft. These are just journalists watching games just like we do and making judgments on what they see on the field. So there's no way from the star system to tell what a player is going to pan out to be. You're only judging them from a prospect standpoint. But what happens is the more of those guys that you have, the more of those 4 and 5-star guys that you have, your chances of finding that guy, that NFL talent, increases significantly. Because like I said, it's only measurable. So a lot of it is tied to size. Let's take offensive line as a perfect example of what I'm talking about. If you are an offensive lineman and you're 6'6", 350 pounds with long arms, you're likely going to start off at 3-star minimum. Just by size alone. By the time you ended your high school career, even if you went to a 1A school, by the time you get out of there, you're gonna be a 4-star prospect just by size alone. So when you think about that, when you look at the trenches, because that's where the bulk of draft picks come from. When you're talking about first round, that's what goes first round. The trenches and quarterbacks, but. When you look at the trenches, these schools that on these lists, size-wise, these guys are significantly bigger, significantly larger, significantly more ready to play than those other schools. So that's why I think that the NFL teams looking at these, they're not necessarily looking at these schools, they're looking at the prospects. You know what I mean? Like, Will Compton.
I agree.
Will Campbell on paper is a hell of an offensive line prospect.
I agree with that.
I disagree to your point. No, I disagree to your point to where they're saying they're not looking at schools, because how can you say, and this goes back to the point, how can you say they're not looking at the schools if the prospect is not there when that school is continually winning? Like, so I ask you this question. So if you were an NFL type, if you were NFL scout, right?
Mhm.
You're let's just say you are for you scouting for team A, and you
Right.
looking for a defensive, you looking for a pass rusher, edge rusher, whatever it is, come off the edge. All right.
Right.
You know that what the defensive strategy you're running a 3-4 defense. So basically in a 3-4 defense of you coming off the edge, you need a guy that potentially can probably drop back in some type of coverage, that potentially is probably a little bit leaner than other guys. He doesn't have to be as strong and big, probably somewhere between that 6'2", 6'3" range, probably somewhere between that 235, 240 range. Probably you want him to be somewhere in that 4, I don't know, 4'4", 4'5" range, 4'6" at max is where you want him to be at. All right, cool. Are you gonna go look at North Dakota State first, or are you gonna look at Georgia? Which one? Which school are you gonna go look at first? Are you gonna go look at North Dakota State, or are you gonna go look at Georgia?
That I'm looking at prospects.
No. You don't. No. Are you gonna look at Georgia or North Dakota State first? Because which team is winning the most?
Looking at prospects, bro. I'm looking at
how recruiting works.
To your point,
if North Dakota State got that guy, I'm going to North Dakota State.
You just sat here and said this is what you just said. You just said majority those schools are going to get more 4- and 5-star type guys, prospects in that system, right? So if they're getting those, if they're getting that much more, and they have a potential to actually have that much more, which school are you gonna look at first? That has the prospect, right? So when you tell me, you're gonna look at the prospect, you got to look at the school first that actually has the potential prospect to do that. So
but you're looking at the school because the prospect is there. You ain't looking at the school because of the school. But you're not looking at the school because you're looking at the school. You're looking
at the school because the prospect is there, because you just sat here and told me.
But that's what we're saying, that it's like, bro,
are continually getting 4- and 5-star type guys.
But that's the
But the kid went to North Dakota and was. No, I was about to say the kid from North Dakota was all conference, and he balled out all 4 years he was at school and put up these amazing stats. I'm gonna look at him first. I don't care that he was
the best prospect. You see what I'm saying? You're gonna look at the best prospect. If Georgia has 5,
I ask you this question. When do you start? Okay, in this conversation, because we always had this conversation on the shows. Especially when it comes to teams playing teams. When it's time to start saying teams need to play teams that are of the same caliber and of the same thing. When it's time to start playing for championships, when are you gonna start? When are you going to put into that qualification the level of competition that man is playing against? Because we do it. We do it all the time when we talk about teams that have not played, that are not playing teams on the same caliber. So to my point, are you still going to go to North Dakota State first, or are you going to go to Georgia? Answer the question.
I did that with Trey Lance. But
hold on, this happened this year, right? What year didn't Mike Green? Mike Green went to what? The Ravens.
He went. Mike Green is from what? I forgot what school he's from. Yes, he
Marshall.
Can I ask you a question?
There were pass rushers from bigger name schools left on the board. Jack Sawyer left on the board. He had just won a national championship. Yet they went with Mike Green. They didn't go to Ohio State and say that was Ohio State's best stand-up pass rusher. Really?
How many other pass rushers went before him, though?
Can I ask you a question?
It was some that went before him, but
exactly. My point.
So Nick, are we talking about when? Because I just want to make sense of it. Are we talking about draft by draft? Or are we talking about a school sustained success in the draft?
My question is this, bro. When we talking, the question early was, is the transfer portal killing development? That was the early.
Yeah, I know the topic.
Let me finish. Then when we got to the point to where they said, this is what was said. The point was said that they're not 4 or 5-star players, they're 4 or 5-star prospects. And it was also said when I was sitting here that these schools that we've mentioned earlier are going to get these 4 and 5-star prospects because they're winning more. Okay, so I asked the question. I said, if you are a scout and you are going to find a guy that's going to fit your 3-4 scheme, are you going to look at North Dakota State first, or are you going to look at Georgia first? Because they have more of the prospects that you just told me that these schools have. So which one you going to look at first? And because it was said, I'm not looking at the school, I'm looking at the prospect. That's what was said.
Yeah.
So are you going? So in order to look at the prospect, you got to look at the school. North Dakota State is not a brand name. It is not even a brand name over Boise. So which one are you going to look at?
I'm looking at the prospect, man.
And I understand, because it was said you got to put in stuff that makes your argument earlier. I understand what we do.
I'm just saying, if you got at Tuskegee,
if that's the question.
If you got a Tuskegee wide receiver that's a 6'5" Randy Moss type running a 4.2 40, I'm going to Tuskegee, bro. I ain't studying Georgia.
Yeah. Well, no, this is what I would say. Hold on. I'm gonna make sense of it. This situation, because now we're running off the rock. So
we're not running off the rock.
We are. If we say we're going for a 6'5" receiver at Tuskegee, I would say this. That situation there is position dependent. I'm not trying to go.
That's my point. That's my point. The whole point
is position dependent. I'm not trying to go. I'm not going.
That's the reason why I said a defensive end pass rusher in a 3-4 defense. That was my whole point.
Because in situations you're gonna go with the level of competition, like Nick alluded to earlier. You want to see.
If I'm an NFL scout, bro, I'm going with the best. I'm going with the best prospect, regardless of what school he's at. Okay. That's, you know what I'm saying.
But the level of competition can make a prospect look better, DC.
Because I get that too. I get that too. Okay. But I get that too. But if I'm an NFL scout, man, I'm going to the prospect. I'm not going to.
Well, the thing about it is, as an NFL scout, DC, you have to take as an NFL scout, you got to take level of competition.
Yeah, I know you do. I know you do. But
if you hold up, if you don't, that's their job, DC. You can't, as an NFL scout, you just can't keep taking chances just because he has the measurables at another school. You have to take the opportunity to look at, all right, this man level of competition. He played against a 5-star DB. He played against an All-American DB, and he put up these type of stats. He played these first and second team DB and put up this type of stats versus this guy right here who played a guy who barely even made it out of high school.
Okay, dude, but if going by those metrics, you would only have players from those schools in the NFL.
No, you're gonna always find diamond in the rough. That's coming.
Okay. No. What I'm saying though, I ain't talking. Yeah, we could talk diamond in the rough. I'm talking about every down players that get scouted, bro. By going by that metric, you would only have players from Georgia, Alabama, and Ohio State in the NFL. You wouldn't have players from Auburn, Boise State, Wisconsin, Wake Forest. You wouldn't have players from none of those teams because the scouts would look at them and be like, well, they're playing lower talent.
Exactly.
You see what I'm saying? That's not what scouts are looking at. Scouts are not just looking at the level of competition. If that were the case, you would have no players from D2, D3, SWAC, SIAC, because they're not playing the level of talent you're talking about. You would just have those teams that recruit well in the top 10 in recruiting that play each other.
But that's
not the case. The NFL
last year's draft,
what's happening in NFL. What we're talking
about, last year's NFL draft, the first cornerback and receiver both came from the Big 12.
Yeah, that's
Travis Hunter,
Tinterio. But they're not playing highest level football. They're not playing the highest level.
It's Power 5. Power 5 football is higher level football.
Bro, they're not.
They're playing comparable competition.
Bro, SEC Big 10 is the highest level football, bro. Okay. We all know that. We all know that.
But no, it's not. What I'm saying is, we talking about higher level and lower level. But before we were talking about the schools that traditionally send kids to the NFL.
Yeah, but that's why I asked the question. I was like, are we talking about those schools? Because if that's the case, that's a whole different argument. Because if you talking about those schools like that goes back to
that's what I thought we was talking about.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. That goes back to y'all point earlier. But then my point would be, if you look at history, usually schools who have a long level of sustained draft greatness have been good for a long time due to the system.
I think about this. The best receiver, the first receiver off the board went to Arizona, played in the Big 12, right? McMillan. The next receiver off the board played in the Big Ten for the national champions for Ohio State. Ohio State has perennially sent receivers to the NFL. LSU, chock full of receivers in the NFL. Alabama, chock full of receivers in the NFL. The NFL scouts didn't do that in the first round. They didn't go to those schools and look and say, let me get somebody from those schools that always send receivers to the NFL. They said, the Panthers said, let's get the best prospect at receiver we can get. We don't care that he goes to Arizona. We don't care that he didn't play LSU ball, SEC ball. He hasn't been developed by whatever they're doing down there at LSU that's pumping out receivers left and right. We don't care. He is the best prospect.
But most of the time, you see higher drafted schools in numbers are dynasties. Like when Florida was winning. If you go back to when Urban Meyer was winning, his draft picks was getting drafted at a high rate. When Nick Saban started winning, his draft pick went up to a high rate. Like when DC alluded to earlier, when Clemson was winning, they were getting draft picks at a high rate. When you sustain a dynasty, that means your school is winning for a long period of time, and y'all putting out that type of draft pick.
Because when you win, you get better recruits. We're talking about it with Auburn right now. It's like we need to win, so we need to get better recruits. And better recruits lead to more NFL draft picks.
But do you feel like systems allude to that, or just talent alone?
I think it's more so talent than systems. Systems, it's a nuanced conversation because systems, I think, is for different positions. Put it to like it's positional when you're talking about systems.
I feel like Tez. I feel like that's why I disagree with you. I feel like coaches build dynasties.
Man, bro, players
dynasties or put players in the NFL. No, we talking about dynasties or put players in the NFL.
Bro, players be
well, if you got a dynasty, you put players in the NFL. We just figured that out.
Players.
If you're building a dynasty, you're stacking 5-star talent back to back.
Kirby Smart said himself, dog.
But here's the thing.
Kirby Smart say you can't beat talent.
Would you consider Texas a dynasty?
Yes.
You think Texas is a dynasty right now?
No. Right now. No. Over history, Texas is one of those schools. I do.
Since 2000. Since 2000, they got a national championship in there.
No. Would you consider Texas has a national championship and been to another national championship? And they
consider that would make Auburn a dynasty.
And they play for Big 12 and they play for Big 12 championships as well.
That would make Auburn a dynasty.
In that vein, yeah, because people would say that. People would say in the last 25 years, Auburn has been one of the top teams in college football because they've been to a national championship. They played for a national championship and things stuff like that. So what are we talking about?
No,
I don't think Auburn is a dynasty. So what is it? Okay, in your opinion, what is a dynasty besides Alabama? Alabama's a dynasty.
Multiple national championships.
Yeah, multiple now. I would say multiple.
You at least got to have multiple.
So since 2000, right? So since 2000, Florida's a dynasty.
They're more.
So Florida's a dynasty.
Probably more. They probably have more.
Ohio State's a dynasty.
Yeah, absolutely.
Georgia's a dynasty.
Yeah, absolutely.
Actually,
Florida's a dynasty, right?
Yeah.
Miami should be in that conversation as well. USC should be in that conversation.
Miami is right on the edge of it.
Miami is in there.
You just told me multiple.
You see the resemblance to the list
in the last 25 years.
Okay.
You see the resemblance to the list that that Tez was naming earlier. There's a lot of those same schools that Tez was willing out that's producing talent to the NFL.
Yeah, but my point is when you put coaches in that position, because you've seen other coaches at those schools that didn't produce. Dennis Franchione didn't produce at Alabama.
Yeah, I agree with you.
Before Pete Carroll got to USC, USC wasn't winning. Before Urban Meyer got to Florida, Florida wasn't winning. So before Saban got to Alabama, Alabama was winning. Auburn beat them 6 years in a row. So my question is, are we sitting here saying just because they get talent, that's the reason why we're looking at it, but coaches don't have anything to do with that talent?
I didn't say coaches don't have anything to do with it.
I said more so. I'm not sitting here saying the coaches. I'm not saying the coaches have complete of the talent, because you do have to go out there and you have to recruit. But when you sit here and tell me that there are schools
that you just said multiple national championships, and those schools with those multiple national championships. When Pete Carroll left, USC went down.
Yeah,
You know
They
what I'm
want
saying?
sanctions, bro. They want probation.
But they went down.
Yeah,
They
But they
still
want
went down.
probation.
Okay, but that
Okay, I give you another.
I would say
I
would say this.
Nick
Same
Saban,
with Alabama.
I would say
Nick
this.
Saben left LSU.
I would say
Nick
that
Saban left
USC has
LSU.
never
And let me
returned
ask you a
But
question.
since Nick Saban left LSU, they still have won 2 national championships, right?
Let me ask you this question.
They won a share. They won
two.
one outright. Yeah, they
Yeah,
won.
they won 2
one
national
outright.
championships.
Would you
since
say
Saban
it's
left.
more about? Would you say it's more about the coach or the program?
It's the program, bro. It's some of these programs are perennially good programs, like a Alabama, bro.
That's
Alabama
not what I
was
mean.
just a
That's
sleeping
not what he asked.
giant.
That's not what he asked. That's not what he asked.
Okay,
I think I know what he asked, but I want him to
ahead.
What I'm asking is, like, okay, who would you say is more responsible for sending players to the NFL? Is it the coach or the program? So would you say that Georgia sends players to the NFL or Kirby Smart sends a lot of players to the NFL? Because you just said you made the point about USC. That's why I brought this up. You said when he left,
I know where you're going. I know where you're going. I know where you're going. It's probably more of the program than that, because they are still going to get players from those schools because of what the cachet has been built up about those schools over time. So I'm still going to go look at USC to see what USC got, because to your point, USC is probably still going to get a prospect at receiver that's 6'5", 220 pounds, and can run a 4.4. I'm probably going to still go get that guy. All right. I'm probably still going to go look at a guy from, I don't know, let's just say Tennessee. I'm probably going to still go look at a running back from Tennessee, because guess what? Their program and the brand of Tennessee is going to just naturally attract top talent. Now, when you add a coach to that's winning, that's winning and has brought his system to that program, now you have a better chance of having that talent commit. So I'm still going to say the program does, because I'm probably going to go look at those schools before I go look at South Alabama. I'm just saying. I'm just being 100%.
Depends on what South Alabama got done there, bro. Like it depends on the prospect, bro.
But the point is, South Alabama is not perennially putting guys in the league like that every year. North Dakota State is not perennially putting guys in the league like that every year. They're not doing that. So when you look at these programs, when you have a program, when you have the brand of Auburn, like a lot of teams are still gonna go look at Auburn. Auburn had the last first round draft pick Auburn had was Noah Igbenogany.
Right.
And Noah Igbenogany probably was not one of the best cornerbacks in the league, but because Noah Igbenogany was at Auburn, they won some games that year, and his size, they looked at his tape and said, "Oh, this guy at Auburn, look at his size. They won some games potentially. Okay, let me see what he got going on. I'm gonna go look there first before I go look at a guy that probably went 11-0 in the MAC. That probably got the same thing. I'm just saying, there's something to that.
Right. That's an interesting point you said, and you brought up. They looked at him and they looked at his size. Very rare when you see a player with mediocre production from a big school that does not fit the measurables that's gonna get that nod.
Nico Thorpe.
In other words,
Nico Thorpe ran a 4.3
Nico Thorpe also,
bro.
Nico Thorpe also was
he was prototypical.
But what did his play on the field show you?
Bro, Nico Thorpe,
Nico Thorpe
might be still in the NFL. What are you talking about?
That's not the question. What did his play on the field show
in
you?
the NFL?
But they don't. We just
They looked at the prospect.
Listen, we just had a whole NFL draft where we saw that NFL owners value the prospect more than they do what you put on the field. They value 6'5", 230 pounds, can throw the ball 80 yards, way more than they value what you put on the field.
And
especially against inferior competition. We just saw that happen.
I feel like
who are you talking about? Who are you talking about?
This is where
several players.
I feel like NFL, if you really want to take into account, NFL scout looks at a player and their coaching situation and see, because if you notice, when they're drafting Alabama, they're drafting defensive players from Alabama a lot before
Wide
the
receiver. They
receiver,
draft wide receivers.
before the receiver situation happened. They were drafting defensive players. Why? Because of Nick Saban's defensive scheme and his defensive, him being a defensive-minded coach. They always go back to Nick Saban gives them pro-ready defensive-wise because of him studying under Bill Belichick. Then you go to a quarterback whisperer, you go to Lincoln Riley. Then you had the Pete Carrolls of the world. If you want to go get a quarterback, then you have the receiver specialist. I'm looking at that as a scout.
Yeah, but them guys was monsters, bro. All the guys that Nick Saban got in the first round, look at them.
Yeah,
they
bro.
was monsters.
Yeah.
On both sides of the ball. They were monsters.
Yeah.
They were real life monsters from another planet. They were bigger, stronger than everybody else.
But that was his system, though, Tez.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. Like,
Alabama didn't start.
You
got to realize Alabama didn't start getting monsters until he got there.
But they weren't like
but it
that.
went hand in hand with the recruiting, though,
They weren't like
just,
that when they first got there as freshmen, though. That's my point. And to Marcus's point earlier in the show, he was saying when you look at the system, it's not just about the scheme on the field. It's about the nutrition. It's about the program. That's everything.
It's about all of that.
And I give you a good example. We played Courtney Upshaw and his senior year at Eufaula. Courtney Upshaw was not the way Courtney Upshaw looked when he left Alabama. That is not how he looked when he first got to when he left Eufaula. He did not look like that. So when you say systems, you have to, like, to Marcus's point, you have to bring in nutrition, you have to bring in recovery, you even bring in the play on the field. So to his point, I have to agree with Marcus on that situation. It is a system that makes that happen. Yeah. And then, of course, the fact those guys just naturally gonna get bigger anyway because they just growing. But the thing is, it is what it is.
See, it's not cooked without, like you say, without the right fuel system. You can have the best system in the world, dog. But when you got players, look what Gus' system looked like with a Cam Newton. You see what I'm saying? The player is gonna make the system. I'm not discounting the system at all and discounting coaching because it has a place. It's a very important place. But you can have great coaching, great system, great nutrition, bro. If you don't have the Jimmys and Joes, that jump,
if you don't have the measurables,
it ain't gonna work. The thing about it is, when you have a great system, you don't have to depend on a player being great all the time. And great systems sustain for a long amount of time, DC. That's the reason why Nick Saban's system was able to surpass. You bring up Gus, and you know I love Gus. But Gus' system only lasted for a spurt amount of time. And y'all always allude to that. Why? Because his system depended on how a player plays for it to be effective. If I can get you in my system, the thing about Nick Saban's system was it was a plug-and-play system. I can go get whatever talent that I feel that can play up the caliber to come on, man.
I disagree with you.
Right now. I don't know about that.
Come on, bro. You can't just go get any talent and plug and play them.
Hold on, wait a minute. Think about how many times Nick Saban in championship game showed you his next experiment.
Because it was a 5-star experiment. All of them were 4 and 5-star experiment.
Here's why I disagree with you. Here's why I disagree with you on that. Here's why I disagree with you on that, Marcus. And this is why I'm not discounting what Tez and DC is saying about that. I'm not discounting what they say about this when it gets to the prospects measurables because Nick Saban said he learned from Bill Belichick that and this is out of his mouth. And I may say it wrong, but I'm paraphrasing. He said when they were talking about safeties, he was like, he's looking for a safety that's 6 foot to 6'1". If he can't, he 6 foot, 6'1", somewhere between 215, 220. We would love for him to be somewhere between that, around that 215 mark. If he can't play with his eyes and he can't open field tackle, he can't play for him. That's what he said. So to that point, measurables do matter. In that,
it matters.
My problem, where I disagree with them at, is that they're saying that talent is probably more to do with the sustainability of the program. When I'm saying that in order for the program to have gotten to that point, a coach had to come in and use what he had at the start to get it to where he is now.
And that's why I'm agreeing with you on. That's why I agree, Nick. That's how
situation just because Kirby Smart showed up.
But that's what I'm saying. I agree with that, Nick. But that's how dynasties I feel are built. Like you just don't, a coach just don't walk in and it becomes a dynasty just because he showed up.
Yeah, let me ask you this. Let me ask y'all this. So since 2010, walk with me here. Since 2010, the quarterbacks that we've had at Auburn, rank them. This should be really easy.
You said the quarterbacks at Auburn.
I mean, what are we? Yeah. Okay, let me ask you a question. What are the
production
wise?
Yeah.
I mean, if you want production wise, you got to go Cam Newton 1 because he won a national championship. I mean,
who's number 2?
If you just use the production, right? Production. Okay, if you
since 2000,
since 2000,
Damien before that, yeah. Because I don't want to just spread it so thin. I just wanted to be real quick and easy.
I'm going Jason Campbell 1. Production.
Okay, Jason Campbell 1. All right.
If you going to your point, I'm not going
Cam Newton.
No.
Okay, who's it?
I'm going Jared Stidham 2.
Jared Stidham 2.
Production wise, yes. Jared Stidham 2. On the field stats, I'm going Jared Stidham 2. Number 3, I'm going Nick Marshall. Number 4, I'm going Cam Newton. Number 5, I would give you Brandon Cox. Number 6, I would give you. Go ahead.
You can stop right there. You mentioned 5 quarterbacks, right?
Go ahead, yeah.
I think, if I'm not mistaken, all but one of them played quarterback in the NFL.
Jared Stidham plays quarterback in the NFL.
I said all but one of them.
Cam Newton played quarterback in the NFL, so 2.
Who else?
You said all but one.
But one of them played. Out of the first 5 you named, all but one of them played in the NFL, right? Nick Marshall didn't play in the NFL.
Nick Marshall did play in the NFL. He played
not quarterback.
Oh, not quarterback. Okay, I get what you're saying. Go ahead. Yeah. Go ahead.
The other 4 in your top 5 played in the NFL. What do you think the difference is between them? Because Nick Marshall went to a national championship. Nick Marshall was dynamic at Auburn.
Mm-hmm.
Why do you think that he did not play quarterback in the NFL, but the other ones did, despite his passing numbers being better than some of those quarterbacks that's on that list?
Because, and I know where you're going with this. I know
they were better.
They were what? They were what?
They were better quarterback prospects. Nick Marshall's 6 feet tall.
Yeah. If Nick Marshall was a 6'3" guy,
200 pounds.
Quarterback in the NFL.
If Nick Marshall was 6'3", 6'4", he would play quarterback in the NFL.
To your point. Let me look up what is Jared Stidham's measurables?
He's like 6'3". He probably like 6'3".
I'm looking it up. I'm looking it up right now. I just want to make sure that that we having the same.
It's no coincidence that the smallest guy is the one on your list. That the smallest
Jared Stidham was 6'2". Jared Stidham was 6'2". All right. Brandon Cox. What was Brandon Cox?
Brandon Cox didn't play in the NFL though.
He was number 6 on your list.
Yeah, but he didn't play.
You said top 5. Okay. Let's see. Who's the next guy? I said Jason Campbell. Jason Campbell was what, 6'4"? Yep. In that situation?
Something like that.
Cam Newton 6'6".
Yep.
Nick Marshall was. They have Nick Marshall listed at
5'9". 5'10".
They got Nick Marshall listed at 6'1". But see, to your point, where I disagree with you on that part right there. You had guys in the league that you had Russell Wilson in the league.
That's true.
Had Drew Brees in the league, who were all 6 foot and under quarterbacks. The reason why I disagree with you on that particular point right there is for the simple fact that Gus Malzahn's passing scheme was not fitted towards Nick Marshall, because Nick Marshall is kind of what's the quarterback that just left from Alabama, the one that just left. Jalen Milroe. He's kind of what Jalen Milroe was. Throw a very nice deep ball, but he can't throw the ball, the intermediate pass, to save his life.
Nick Marshall, Nick Marshall, if you compare him to Jalen Milroe, he had a better career than Jalen Milroe.
Production wise, you correct.
Yet Jalen Milroe got his name called to play quarterback in the NFL draft. Why? Because Jalen Milroe is 6'2". 200, built like a Greek god, like measurables.
But I just mentioned Russell Wilson, Drew Brees. The reason why To that
Those
point,
are three guys. Two guys.
If we're using those two guys, and those are two superstar quarterbacks that was in NFL. Those are two guys that have played for Super Bowl championships and won.
That's true.
My point is this: was it because of their size or because of the fact that they were in systems to where it showcased their strengths? Because Russell Wilson was coming to Auburn, but because of some other stuff, he decided to go to Wisconsin. And it ended up working out. It ended up working out better for him.
Offensive line.
To your point, was it because the system did not showcase his talent enough? It showcased his talent enough as a running quarterback.
He went to a national championship.
It showcased as a running quarterback. He didn't really throw the ball for real.
He was a good passer, man.
He was not that great of Nick Marshall was not that great of a passer.
I'm not saying he was a great passer. Okay, you're saying system.
I thought Nick Marshall chose to play DB though. I thought he didn't want to play quarterback. I thought that's
part two. He did choose
that was his easiest path to play.
Okay, but you're talking about system, and you're talking about Nick Marshall, not the system, not showcasing him. But those other two quarterbacks went to the NFL in the same system.
No, they didn't. Drew Brees went.
No. He's talking about Cam Newton and Jarrett Stidham.
Yeah, but Cam Newton. I would say Cam Newton was a better passer in the mid range than Nick Marshall.
I don't disagree.
I'm saying Jarrett Stidham was a better mid range passer than Nick Marshall.
I don't disagree. I'm just saying I'm just saying you can't discount the system because you can't.
Yeah, you can.
Cam didn't win in the same system.
Okay. All right.
I'm just making that point that Cam them did go in the same system. So what do you have to say about that?
Yeah. Okay. That's fine. All right.
So here's the reason. Here's one of the reasons I had to look it up, because when you brought up Russell Wilson, in terms of getting to the NFL versus Nick Marshall, even though we have Nick Marshall on our list as top quarterbacks, the production from both of those guys is in college is night and day. One threw for over 3,000 yards. The other one didn't. I looked at the attempts, right? Because I was like, well, maybe we didn't throw the ball that much. Well, Nick Marshall had, 293 attempts his last year at Auburn.
Mm-hmm.
And then Russell Wilson at Wisconsin had 309 attempts. So it wasn't that far off.
What's the completion percentage? What's the completion percentage?
Russell Wilson's completion percentage is 72.8%. So
how many rushing attempts? Because Nick Marshall is a scrambling quarterback.
He's a running quarterback.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, I'll take that into account. Let me pull that up. I want to give him everything. So he ran for that last year 798 yards on 153 attempts. So let's see what Russell Wilson did, because he I know it's not that high.
I didn't realize he rushed for 700 yards this last year.
Russell Wilson ran for
1,000 yards. I think he rushed for 1,000 yards the year before.
Wow. He ran for 300. Yeah, he rushed for over 1,000 the year before, but 338 yards on 79 attempts, significantly less attempts. But my point is, the reason why Russell Wilson is in the NFL and Nick Marshall is not is because Russell Wilson completed 72% of his passes.
Mm-hmm. That's my point. But
he's a better prospect.
But when you look at it, if you look at that 72% of those, 72% of that pass completion, and we just get into the real deep numbers here, I would bet that 60% of that 72% was mid-range, was stuff that was 15 yards and in. And that's what Nick Marshall could not do. And when we talk about quarterbacks in the NFL, that's what separates great quarterbacks from non-great quarterbacks in the NFL. So when you looked at Nick Marshall, what was the play? I can tell you the offense now. RPO, Ricardo Lewis down the middle of the field for a 40-yard pass down the field. When did we ever see Nick Marshall stand in the pocket and throw something 15 yards and in, or at least something that was less than 20 yards down the field?
Yeah, that's my point. That's my point.
Prospect based.
That's my point. Is that Nick Marshall, even though like everything you said is 100% true, those other four quarterbacks on that list, no NFL team looked at us and was like, they sent four other quarterbacks to the NFL. Let's look at Auburn in 2014 and see if we can look for a quarterback.
They actually did.
Let's give Nick Marshall the benefit of the doubt.
They did. They actually asked him at the combine to throw, and he did. he threw it to combine.
Right.
So I mean, to that point, if we gonna be real about it, Nick Marshall did throw. He did go through the quarterback drills at the combine. It just wasn't with the quarterback group. But
I mean, he did go to a national championship as the quarterback. So
yeah,
right.
So he got an opportunity.
They didn't want to see that.
Let me ask y'all this question. What's the quarterback from Florida that went in the first round?
Tim Tebow. I'm just playing.
No, not. No, the other guy.
We're talking about Anthony Richardson. What about
Anthony Richardson? Okay, yeah. Would you equate as far as would you equate Anthony Richardson and Nick Marshall's talent? I mean, production as the same. Who had better production?
Anthony
Richardson.
Nick Marshall or Anthony Richardson?
Anthony Richardson.
I don't know about that.
He did. He had better production.
I think Nick Marshall had better production.
No, Anthony Richardson had better production.
In
his one season, Anthony Richardson had about, I think he had close to 3,000 yards passing. I think he was like 1,000-yard rusher if I'm not mistaken.
Okay, my point is
his completion percentage is probably comparable to what.
Right. So what I'm saying is if Anthony Richardson had Nick Marshall's stature, he wouldn't have went in the first round.
Okay, bro.
You see what I'm saying? That's my whole point.
Comparing
his
years,
measurables, man, put him in that place.
Comparing senior years, again, Nick Marshall.
I'm not disagreeing with you on the measurable part. I'm not disagreeing with you there, but when we get
Nick
back
Marshall, 60% of his passes for 2,500 yards. Anthony Richardson, 53% of his passes for 2,500 yards.
So basically,
he's what now?
But what was the rush? And that was Anthony Richardson's only year playing. Started.
I didn't hear the first part. What was the tell me the
first part was it's 53. He completed 53.8% of his passes for 2,500 yards.
So Nick Marshall had better production.
60% of his passes for 2,500 yards. Of course, we know Nick Marshall ran for 800 yards, 1,000 yards the year before that. Let's see what Anthony Richardson had.
54.
He ran for 600 yards.
So Nick Marshall had better production.
In every category, Nick Marshall outperformed him.
Wait. I was like, I'm thinking about
point proven. So Nick Marshall.
No, your point's not proven.
No, I'm just saying.
That's not point proven.
I'm just
but Nick Marshall,
saying,
but Nick Marshall's not 6'4", 235
that's my whole
pounds.
point. He's just. That's the whole point, man.
He had better
production, bro. And
but the thing about that is,
what I'm saying. What I'm saying is, I'm not disagreeing with you on the measurable part. I never said I disagree with you on that. I'm not disagreeing with you on that. But when you talking about that particular case right there, that was Nick Marshall's second year with Anthony Richardson's first full year as a starter.
Okay.
So what's the point? So are we? Nick Marshall had Nick Marshall's first full year. I mean, second full year in the system to where he was comfortable with it. But as Anthony Richardson's first full year as a starter, when the year before he was splitting time with another guy.
Question to you, DC: are you saying that guys get drafted more off of just measurable alone, or like?
No, I'm not saying that. No, I was just piggybacking on what Tez was saying as far as making the Nick Marshall case as far as, you know what I'm saying, some, you know, it is to a degree driven off of, you know, measurables and talent. Man.
Yeah, because
not necessarily
he's a good example because he did.
Yeah, and that's not to say, man, that is the end all be all. But that's just he was just making a point about Nick Marshall, so that's why I brought up the whole.
But it goes back to the original point because he wasn't developed.
Yeah, I guess my point is. I guess the point is like the case I'm making is trying to make is that NFL teams don't fill up their draft board based on the school. They look at the prospect level. Like if they just did it based off school, they wouldn't get paid as much money as they get paid to watch all these kids. So like they actually evaluate these kids based on a case by case basis. It just so happens that the best prospects all end up in the same place.
Exactly. Exactly.
Which makes my point of which I asked the question again. Are you going to North Dakota State first or Georgia?
If they have a better prospect, I'm going to North Dakota State.
I'm going to State.
Okay.
Tuskegee had DBs in the league, bro. Tuskegee had DBs in the league. They came and found them.
Yeah, but Drake Florence went in the 7th round. But I'm just saying
he went to the league, but it was people that went.
And that's no shot at Drake Florence at all.
No.
There's no shot at Drake Florence. But it was Frank. It is no shot at them at all.
I get it.
But when we talking about top tier, when we talking about top tier guys in the league.
But it was prospects that went to Ohio State. But it was prospects that went to Ohio State, Georgia, and all these other schools that he got drafted before them.
Exactly. That's what I was about to say. To your point,
they went and found him.
Frank did go second round. But there were people that he went ahead of that came from schools that were traditionally known for putting DBs in the NFL. Exactly. But they looked at this little kid and said, "That boy's got speed. We want him. We ain't worried about what." We don't even. Tuskegee not known for coaching. We ain't worried about that. How they been coached.
Of course we not. Yeah.
Look at the measurables. Look at these kids.
Yeah.
That's what happened. Like that's what I'm saying.
But my argument, they didn't go there first.
We don't know that. We don't know that.
They did.
I think
we don't know that.
Okay.
If I'm not mistaken, if I'm not mistaken, I think and I may be wrong on this, but I think Frank Walker was the first defensive player that they picked. He may have been the first draft pick that the Giants picked that year. He was either first or second.
Let's look this up. I just want to make sure. Right.
The thing I was going to say is like you said, Ted, no, you're not going to fill your whole draft board up with people just from high tech schools. You're not. And like you said, I'm willing to take a risk on a guy who has the good measurables later on in the draft.
It's not.
Frank went in the 6th round. He went in the 6th round at the 207th overall pick.
But look at the draft, the Giants draft picks that they had that year. They didn't have very many before they picked Frank.
2003 Giants draft picks. Okay.
I don't think they had very many. If I could be wrong on that, but I don't think they had very many draft picks before they actually picked Frank. If I'm not mistaken. I could be wrong though.
Let's see. So in 2003, the Giants. Okay, so here we go. In 2003, the Giants took William Joseph, defensive tackle from Miami. They took O.C. Umenyiora, defensive end from Troy State.
Also from Tuskegee.
Yeah, also from Tuskegee. Exactly. They took Chacon from a tight end from Morgan State. They took Roderick Babers, a defensive back from Texas. They took David Deal, offensive tackle from Illinois. They took Willie Ponder from Missouri State. They took Frank Walker from Tuskegee. They took David Tyree, wide receiver from Syracuse. They took Charles Drake, DB from Michigan. They took Wayne Lucier. I'm not gonna say that. I don't know if I'm saying it right. Lucier, offensive guard from Colorado, and they took Kevin Walter, wide receiver from Eastern Michigan. So Frank was there 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. He was a 7th draft pick that year.
Okay.
I
was dead wrong about that.
hey, you man enough to admit it, Ted.
I always do, man. It might have been Drake Florence then. Maybe he was like their second pick. If something, one of them guys.
But the thing about it is, that's why I said DC made a good point. When you take at times, organizations will take a chance on a guy with a good measurable, but that's a high risk, high reward type situation. Only time you really see that if I'm going off of just strictly measurables, not a lot of tape, or not them playing a lot of high level competition, it's usually I'm gonna take them a 5th or 6th round pick. I'm not taking, like Nick said, I'm not taking those guys in the 1st and 2nd round often.
Yeah. So to y'all point, man, I think that this is where we kind of get our bases. I agree. I think that if an NFL team is drafted and they're getting in a position, they're down to a position where they need a tall cornerback, right? And they haven't really scouted tall cornerbacks. There's no tall cornerback with obvious production out there, and it's even across the board. I would rather take a tall cornerback from one of those premier schools than I would the other schools.
Okay. To your point. I just looked it up. I'm sorry, Ted. To your point.
No.
That was 2003. He went to the San Diego Chargers, Drake Florence. The Chargers took a DB in the 1st round from Texas A&M, Sammy Davis, and then they took Drake Florence as their 2nd pick.
Okay.
DB from Tuskegee.
I knew it was one of them.
And then they took another DB literally like 16 picks later in the second round from Texas A&M. So they took they took both Texas A&M DBs and Dre Florence. So I don't know if
So Dre
that sounds like to me that they were going with this and like I said, it ain't no shot at Florence. None.
What round did he go in?
He went in the second round.
Yeah,
But he also
You
went
said seven. You said
second.
Oh, second.
Yeah.
I thought you said-
So what I'm saying is, if you had a smaller school, not only do you have to have the measurables, you have to have the production to go with it.
Mhm.
6 feet,
If
200
you-
pounds. Is what
But I also want you to understand.
If you had a
though,
bigger,
Ted,
if you had a
Flow-
big school, you don't necessarily have to have the production. You can just have the measurables and be at a big school in draft.
That's a good point.
If that makes sense.
That's a good point.
But D-Flow was a transfer too, Ted. You got to
he
take that.
transferred from Chattanooga.
Yeah, that's true. Josh Allen got picked in the first round from Wyoming over a lot of quarterbacks that went to traditional quarterback schools.
But he had a good combine though, Ted.
Mm-hmm.
His combine was crazy.
That is also true. But if Josh Allen was 6 feet tall with that same combine with 6 feet 200 pounds, he would not have went first round.
Hold up. Brandon Whedon got drafted, and he wasn't just popping out the page.
Brandon Whedon is probably about 6'4".
Really?
I think Brandon Whedon about 6'3", 6'4". I could be wrong. But Josh Allen is 6'5", 240 pounds.
I thought Brandon Whedon was undersized. I might be wrong though.
Yeah, like
I got me researching tonight, bro.
Yeah, you're right.
saying.
You're right. Ted. He said,
Yeah,
So-
like measurables mean a lot.
I'm just saying, this somebody have some small hands. Didn't he have small hands or something?
Mitch Trubisky had small hands. He wear 2 gloves.
No, Kenny Pickett.
Kenny Pickett had small hands too.
Very small hands, yeah.
That's another thing. Look at Mitch Trubisky from North Carolina. Right?
Yeah, I gotta hop off. Y'all have a blessed.
Yeah, we about to end it.
I gotta hop off too, bro.
Man. All right, man. We appreciate y'all so much, man. This show went
Awesome,
here.
man.
This is a great show, man. Great
Awesome
show,
stuff,
man.
man.
Tell them where they can find y'all at real quick before we get up out of here.
Auburn _addicts on all platforms, man. Auburn _addicts TV on YouTube.
Where they got you at, Tez? Where can they find you at, Tez?
Find me at It's SEC Season on YouTube and on Twitter. Personal page is Codename Tez on Twitter.
Okay, I gotta
X,
subscribe to your Twitter. I'm
whatever you call
subscribed to your YouTube. I gotta subscribe to Twitter.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
And make sure y'all go out and follow Tight Sports Alabama Football Megacast. We're gonna get Tight back on the show. I think he was supposed to be on tonight, but he said they had some bad weather up there. Make sure y'all go follow Dustin at the Up Tempo Podcast, man. Go follow Sharp over at Sharpshooter Sports. Go follow our guy Vandy Chris over at Golden Broom Podcast, and of course Bubba and the Old Man at Auburn Sports Talk. And of course, make sure y'all go follow the Huggy Beard himself on YouTube.
Tight says internet went out.
Yeah.
It only works 9 out of 13 times.
Make sure y'all follow us on Facebook at the Water Cooler Talk Podcast, man. Make sure y'all follow us on Instagram and TikTok at the Water Cooler Talk, on Twitter at CoolerSpot23, and of course, subscribe, like, share, and hit the notification bell button here on YouTube so you know when we post more videos and go live, man. We appreciate y'all so much for rocking with us tonight. As always, man, we'll be back Monday, 8 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Central, back around the Water Cooler as always. Until then, y'all have a good one. Better yet, y'all have a great one. Y'all be blessed, man. Make sure y'all give the man upstairs above his, because he deserves all the praise and the glory. And until then, it is one love, ladies and gentlemen. And guess what? We out this mug. I holla, man. Y'all have a good weekend.
Boys and girls of all ages, you're tuned into the Water Cooler Talk Podcast, the biggest podcast in the world. Yeah.
Thanks for checking out this episode of Water Cooler Talks with your hosts, Nick Frazier and Marcus Fitzpatrick. Make sure you like and subscribe on your favorite podcast platform so that you never miss an episode.